Oh, that's right. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. I would take you. Well, I'd like to ask you some extra questions, and we can always come back because I think the three big it's for the audience that were listening who heard the questions who were probably like that was the cliffhanger, right? You ask the question, you get the responses, but don't get to hear what they say. We'll come back and use that as almost a bit of a synthesis because those are some really the question that I asked Kent was around his three big experiences and takeaways from the event yesterday for anybody that wants to produce event. I'd like to click in a little deeper with this next question with you. Is there's this great quote that basically says that common sense is not always common practice, meaning that we may know these things but we might not necessarily always do these things. In going into digital events, we may kind of get the conceptual side of it of what we need to do, but Kent, from your perspective, what is like three really simple things that are common sense for everybody, but nobody really ever really practices them, which you really have to be even more mindful of when you move to a digital experience
So, three common sense things for
that are
moving to a
not
digital
commonly practiced,
that are not commonly practiced.
but
Okay,
they should be.
got it. All right.
Like an AV check before
Yeah,
we go
I think I'm going to start with that one. All right, so checklists. I know this sounds really ridiculous, but there's the book called The Checklist Manifesto, and it basically tells you make checklists and check them off before you do important things. And this show's important. And today, because we were in a meeting up to about 5 minutes before live, I didn't do my checklist, my pre-check, and I missed one thing. I missed the microphone input to the live feed. So I would say the common sense thing number one is for things that you want to do that are scalable and repeatable. And in going digital, there can sometimes be 20 things that you have to check off to do one thing good on the outside. So do those checklist items, like make your checklist. Another thing that I would say is just absolutely common sense is to understand, and one of the things I commend you on, Kyle, is you're always endlessly sort of flexible, and you roll with things. You've got to realize when you're going into these spaces that are digital, they're kind of new. There's a million variables, 999,909 of which you cannot necessarily control. So you've got to be really, really flexible. It sounds obvious, but this is not, something that is literally going to be put together the same way every single time. It just isn't, not ever. No two live broadcasts are the same, for example. And these are things about going live like we are. A third thing about being digital is you've got to make space to practice. It is almost like a muscle memory, like an athlete kind of thing. Like just now when I got a notification via our live chat channel via Periscope that they could hear you, they couldn't hear me. I knew exactly where to go. I knew control you, click here, do that. Oh my gosh, there it is. Kyle, buy me some time. That took a couple of minutes. A year ago, it would have taken 20 minutes or 2 hours. So that's muscle memory. That's just me practicing, practicing, practicing. So those are my three. And I think those are all very common sense items, but I don't ever see anybody just do it.
So I appreciate that. What I've been doing just in the is adding some of that to the chat stream
Oh,
in the
yeah.
YouTube show as well. Just saying three. I kind of messed up the first line, but just to put those things there, which I believe the chat stream may stick around for the recording after, so people can kind of see some of the topics that we're talking about too.
Quick, because we got the audio in a little late, and some people are just joining the stream, Kyle. I'm seeing some chat from Twitch. by the way. We're live on Twitch,
Mhm.
Periscope, Facebook, and YouTube again today. So why don't we give just another 30-second overview of why we're here?
Fantastic. So, for all of those that have just joined, again, welcome to Digitized Live. This show is all about unlocking your digital potential. This is season 2, episode 2. We have season 1 with around 8 live shows. So, there's 8 weeks of content. If you go up to the YouTube channel, you will notice that what we've also been doing on a daily basis is adding in tips, tools, methodologies, learnings as we are moving way more into a digitized world, which is digitizing your life, your brand, your organization, your work streams, all those kinds of things. Kent and myself are spending and doubling down on a daily basis, really understanding what it's like to move from an analog to a digital world. And instead of everyone just trying to figure it out, we're really trying to build knowledge bridges, give all of our learnings. And just so you know, we don't have this perfect. We're doing this in real time every day, just like today. But what we're doing is we're getting on in real time and practicing and demonstrating, and then putting the teachings up there so that we can all help each other rise together in this very interesting time in our life. So welcome to the show. Today's show, we are talking about digitizing events. We have been running a lot of events recently, and we're going in right now. I'm interviewing Kent around a big event that was run yesterday. And we'll flip. We've done some also smaller strategy sessions yesterday, but very sort of corporate-based strategy sessions. And we just want to impart some of the learnings and the wisdom. So 2 big questions we've asked Kent earlier was some big learnings from the event. The last question was just around what are some common practices that, you know, may be common sense, but we just don't practice them enough. And I'm about to dive into my third question, which is that in the shift, Kent, between because you and I, we travel the world, we speak on big stages, we've helped create great events in the past, but physical ones. What are the 3 biggest differences that people should wrap their heads around between a physical event and a digital event? But pick the things that are actually taking event experiences to the next level. So things that were happening in analog that are now happening in digital that are actually even more exciting.
You're really going to give me a workout today, Kyle.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. All right, so I'll do the first one from a speaker point of view, and we're experiencing it right this second. When you're doing these types of digital events, speaking or production, live streams, recorded streams, it doesn't really matter. The only thing you see on the other end is the aperture of a camera. You do not see someone in the audience yawning with their eyes wide, crying, standing up and applauding, right? These kinds of things. You don't get that physical feedback. Now, I do have the chat open, and I found a way to do a multi-chat interaction with the audience across all the live channels. I'm testing it actually today for the first time. So I'm getting some feedback, and that's how I knew my microphone wasn't working today. But the point is that you have to internalize that. You almost have to visualize what you would normally be seeing out there in the audience. And I choose to not think of the people who are falling asleep, but think about the people who are excited and engaged. And I try to project that into my own experience, staring basically at my studio walls. That's one. Is the really understanding that your feedback loop is very, very different. Let's see. The second one is going to be the whole, when you go and you talk at a live event, or I could come at this from running it, or I could come at it from experiencing it as a speaker. Let me.
I think let's do both, because it's interesting that we're on both sides, because will be listeners that are listening who are being asked to join digital events to speak, and then there's other listeners who I'm sure a lot of our listeners are wanting to create or develop or do their own events, and so let's play it from both sides. And I can also having just spoken a ton of different webinars and online events, I can also come at it from that perspective too, to jump in. But let's hear what you have to say about that.
Perfect. Coming on the stage to a live event is a very different experience, because you're going to get stuck in versions of what people call a green room, that you're really like in a queue. You're staring at a screen that goes waiting, and frankly that's weird, because normally you're handled onto an event stage, and in this case you're just sort of sitting there waiting, and you don't know and I've been experiencing bringing relatively famous people on stage lately, and you're sitting there talking to them, and they're like, why am I just sitting here waiting? And I'm like, well, everybody's sitting here waiting, and that's how this works. And when you go live, it's going to be sudden and abrupt. And so watch your screen, because that's when you're live. So don't do weird stuff like personal body things or whatever you might have going on. So you just have to realize that experience, it's a little bit more quiet in a way, and it's a little bit more personal. So just be patient. Now from an event producer side, bringing, say, a string of live speakers onto a digital stage, it works a lot like a very old school radio call-in show. You literally are bringing all these folks in, they're queuing up, and you're managing that line of speakers. You're doing AV checks, you're making sure everything works, and then you're sending them to another place, in our case, Kyle, called the studio, where they will then meet the person whose job it is to make them look good on stage and get them up there so they can deliver the message that they're there to deliver. And so from an event producer stage, this can feel very out of control, I think maybe is the right way to think of it. We've experienced this when we're talking to folks. They don't feel like they're in control. Why? Because they don't have them all in a room together. They can't see them all. You don't know if they're getting up from their desk and walking away, if they're really engaged and paying attention. Or the worst, you get somebody all the way to studio successfully, and then they change something. They turn their microphone off. Or someone starts yelling for them because we're all in our houses right now. Or they pick up their phone and they're like, tap, tap, tap. You're like, no. You need to be deeply engaged right now. You need to pay absolute attention. You're on the stage. You're just off stage and you're about to walk on. Would you grab your cell phone and start having a chat with your best friend right as you're walking? No, you normally wouldn't. And doing that as a speaker, or seeing your speakers doing that as the person bringing them on, it is just nerve-wracking, frankly. So these are things you have to think about. There's a level of, I think what I'm getting at, there's a level of professionalism that needs to kick in on all sides that is much more precise than frankly, it's more, you have to be more precise. Maybe that's the message I'm trying to get to, is the precision and the respect for everybody's job needs to be kind of off the charts high. The bar is raised to successfully do digital. That was really two and some change. So you kick in there and see where I went.
I really like what you're saying, because it's been interesting as we're converting, you and I, as we convert from physical events and physical speaking engagements and to webinars and dropping in on masterminds or client events or any of those kinds of things. I think what you call that is so important. Like right now, same thing. I have a screen or a couple of screens, and I'm staring at the Logitech, and there's a bright light just over here, and that's my audience. That's the audience. And so, making sure your energy is right and setting your intention before, you have to stay connected, obviously, as you're getting onto stage. But I highly recommend figuring out your energy pre-rituals for anyone that's going to speak, and for anybody that's hosting an event that's motivating speakers who are brand new. Because Ken, just give that quick statistic on all the events that we've run so far, just in the last couple of months, right? As the exponential uptick in digital events has gone up for us. What is the percentage of people that are doing it for the first time versus that are seasoned in terms of talking camera? Is it 70%, 80% are brand new at this, or it's first time? How many would you say, like, out of all the speakers we've been interacting with, that like speaking on a digital stage has been their first time just in this last couple months?
It's 80 or 90%, Kyle.
Yeah, so what's interesting there for anybody listening, if you haven't even had that experience, it's a little different from being on a Zoom call, right? We're all having the meetings all day long. But when you are energetically being asked to share your information and your knowledge as a knowledge broker or as an expert in a certain field, you have to imagine that there is an audience, that there is a stage. And so what I've done as a pre-ritual for myself is I tune in. I sometimes look at the numbers, if we have a lot of people showing up, like, there could be thousands at one point, or there could be hundreds, or it could be a small event, and very, if it's internal and exclusive. But whatever that is, if it's above 1, like right now, I can look down on YouTube and I can see there's a few people watching. When you see that a few people are watching you, it's interesting. There's this thing of how you show up, because right now we're in a private environment, right? We're in a personal environment. Doors are closed, everything's off, I'm alone. But the way we would show up publicly is sometimes our energy is different publicly than it would be privately. What I do to tune in my mind is to go like, I'm gonna really bring my public persona, even though I'm sitting alone in a room yelling, but it's bring your public persona as you're sitting in front of the screen, and you get a little more animated. You bring your energy, because if someone's watching you, and someone's watching you to listen to you or to learn from you or to interact with you, even though you might not always get that feedback, we do respond differently. That's one of the little tools and tricks that I use, to what you were saying on a couple of the things there, Kent, is just I let go of my private persona and I really bring on my public persona, which actually helps me. It helps me,
So I can completely attest to that. I think over the last few weeks I've brought over 200 speakers through pipelines onto live digital stages, personally, okay? And I watch them transform after they go through the queue into the studio and onto the stage. And then when you pull them off and you're off air again, I watch them transform again. And I personally experienced this as well. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of always Kent for the most part. you know me by now, but I suppose my public persona is a little different. But for the most part, I'm either on or I'm asleep and vegged out watching TV. But in particular, there's people that you see on a camera sometimes that just exude this incredible energy and persona and aura, and I just always wonder, how do they do that? And I've watched some of those folks coming online in the last days, especially, and I see them go through that transformation, and it's been very interesting, to experience that and actually to feel normal, because I'm like, oh, they're just like me. I mean, they're not always like that. It's a good thing. I don't think anybody could be, but it's interesting, right? We're all actors sometimes when we're on stage, and frankly, maybe a tip is I'm going to go sign up for some acting lessons. I think I need them after having this experience for not even for a few weeks, but for a few years in my case. Because I went digital in 2015. That was when I actually made the cut from really fully physically doing everything in an office with a staff, all that stuff, to projecting myself and starting to do my first presentations on big screens, big stages. I did that all the way back in 2015. So I'm just realizing now that a lot of this is like making a movie, but it's not like a pre-recorded movie. Kyle, we do pre-roll and we do live shows like this. They're very different. There's no edits for a live show. So even
gotta bring the energy.
Even that is totally different. Oh, I gotta give a tip to anyone out there who wants to produce a digital event, because this is always met with some disdain when I share it with event producers. You need to pre-record a significant portion of your material, and you can do it in such a way so that it interleaves beautifully with the show. And there's two reasons you need to do that. Number one, you need space. If you just want to have 100 speakers in a row live, that is going to be really hard. If you intersperse that with some pre-recorded material of those very same speakers, then you're going to buy yourself some time in between live segments. This is a big learning, by the way. And then in addition to that, you can also combine it in such a way that so the pre-roll gives you time to bring the actual live person into the studio so that you can then get an update from them after. And I'm not saying you should air a video that was recorded 3 years ago. Keep it short, keep it fresh. But just this concept of mixing the live and the recorded, broadcast studios have been doing this forever, right? We're just mapping it onto this sort of internet broadcast space now.
Awesome. So I've got one more question for you as it relates to this. So as a participant, right, there's more people joining more events. So we've now, across a couple of the questions we've talked about big learnings overall that you're noticing in general shifts in events and conferences. Then we're talking about it from the perspective of a producer. We're talking about it from the perspective of a speaker. Let's talk about it from a perspective of an attendee. So we've all been experiencing different events. We've been signing up for things. For anybody that's watching that's been hesitant to do so, Ken, your 3 biggest joyful learnings of why would we encourage people to sign up and attend events? And that could be webinars, that could be shows, that could be virtual tours, that could be learning experiences, trainings, any of those kinds of things. Why what are the 3 big benefits to doing it that you've experienced, so far? What would you recommend?
Sure. So the number one thing, and I did allude to this earlier, it may have been in the part where the microphone was off, but number one is interactivity, both between the peers, the attendee, the peers in the event. You're going to have an opportunity that is greater than any you've ever had at any physical event to meet people. It's outrageous. I saw a guy in a 2.5-day event series meet over 140 people and book 100 meetings. Okay, just try doing that at a physical event. Good luck, right? It's almost impossible. The second is from a speaker as attendee situation. You have never in your life had an opportunity to connect with your audience this way. Mm-hmm. It's new, it's different, and it's amazing. It will improve your material. It will improve your capability to communicate. It is outrageous. So remember, speakers are attendees too at digital events if they're really doing it right, in my opinion. The third thing from an attendee perspective is there's this thing that's happening with digital that's unique. It's a time shifting effect. You are in a place at a time, especially if it's a live event. You're technically in 2 places. Your avatar is at the event and you are in your office or your home probably. But then also sometimes, I know people that said they were attending 4 simultaneous digital events at the same time. Try that in the physical world. Good luck. You can't go to 4 different cities at the same time. Not possible. And then you often get access in a variety of ways to the recorded materials, which because you attended, you get the access. If you don't attend, you don't get the access, or it's an additional fee, right? That's what we're seeing kind of shake out in most of these events. Because the material then gets digitized later and turned into digital products and services. So attend the event to get the access and join that community and have access to the materials, and that will give you more than any college course probably that you ever took from that one singular online event. You're going to have a year's worth of material to peruse and learn from, a community that you connected to explore it with, and in many cases, because you met so many people, opportunities to put it into practice.
Amazing. It's amazing. It just makes me reflect on, I just made a note here on the side to do a little exercise for myself, and I'll do it for us as well for Digitized, is how many, just in the last, say, 10 weeks, right? 8 weeks, how much impact, like how many people have we actually been in front of? How much impact has been made and across the countries? And it would be very interesting because I would imagine we were in the, based on, webinars, live events, we run things we've attended, things we've been part of, but then also the recordings go out to databases of people. I'd imagine that it's tens of thousands, if not 100,000 plus people. That's that big. like faces being in front of, right? So message has gone out. Then you think about, it's a minimum of 35, 40 countries, because when we see the stats and we see where people have tuned in from for things, I'm sure I'm being conservative, right? It could be more, and especially with yesterday's event, I mean, maybe it's over 50. But if you just think about countries, and then you think about inbound, like I just think about all the different new people that have registered, signed up, taken action on offers or bonuses or gifts on things that we've given out. and it's nowhere near from 10 weeks ago with the audiences that we were specifically serving intentionally from a physical perspective, or the audiences have dimensionalized. Could be a very interesting exercise to run some of those stats, and it's only increasing, I think, as more people are getting more comfortable. It's the same thing as when the internet started. Would you buy something online? There's still people that struggle with the concept of buying online, handing over your credit card details. There was even people going up and pulling out, money from an ATM, or like there are funny moments of adoption for folk. Like some jump on it very quick. They see the opportunity and there's some trust in it. And we'll figure out security, and there's always going to be a bit messy, right, in compliance and security as we learn new things. And then there's some that wait to see that it's a proven concept, and that it's safe and predictable, and it's not going to hurt them too much, which is absolutely valid. But what is fascinating with this is the more people that are sort of come onto this digitizing experience, which is why it's so important for us to unlock digital potential. And it's not just in the person, but it's also for you to see the benefits in some things. What Kent has just outlined here, just try this for yourself. Think about all the places you've been to in the world, or all the countries you've talked to, or anybody that you've interacted just in the last 8 to 10 weeks, for anybody watching this, and just do the math of just how far your reach has been, or how far you've gone, how far you've adventured, who you've met. I would imagine it will blow your face off. And then try and match that to, like, how difficult would it be to recreate the same impact numbers doing it physically, getting on planes and buses and cars and trains and flying and working individually one-on-one. I'm sure it would be crazy. Ken, jump in on this.
Two things. Number one, I don't think you can replicate it, okay? We will go back to a world where we go to physical things. Absolutely, we will. I don't know exactly when, and there are lots of predictions out there, but it will never be the same again. And as I said, I've already been doing these types of things for a while, and I cannot get the same thing that I get from digital attendance to events and digital presentation events that I get this way. I just simply cannot. Last night in the event chat, a very nice person named Julie, when I got to go on stage for just a couple minutes, I'll find that clip and we'll put it on our YouTube channel, maybe that would be fun. But and Julie, I said something about my reason for doing this is to empower people with technology, and how I intend for the event to give people the processes, the tools, the capabilities, the connections to be able to make the change they seek in the world they live in, where they are now. That's what I call it, EXO World Now. That's the point of the event. Julie says in chat, and I don't know Julie, and this was very kind, she goes, Kent, you have touched more lives than you know. Mm. She's right, I don't know. And I'm okay with that, because now at least I know people are getting the message. And a little bit earlier, Yaroslav, a colleague of mine, had given a talk on helping people discover their personal MTPs. And someone named Chris in San Diego says to Yaroslav, thank you, Yaroslav. You changed my life. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I have these in the dozens, in the hundreds maybe. So people's, the depth of what's happening here is profound. That's one thing in response to what you said, Cal. The second thing is you've given me an idea, and I don't know that I'm 100% ready to commit because of everything that's going on, but I think we need to let's just talk about it right now. People don't know what they don't know, right? We know this. It happens to everybody. It's a human condition thing. You don't know what you don't know. Until you come to an event like this, you don't even know why it should matter, why it should be important. I think Digitized needs to step up and fill that space a little bit. And if that means running some kind of an event or a thing that people can come to, hopefully we can figure out a way to do it so they can come freely. I think that could be really transformative. You've just given me that thought.
Agreed. I think the more impact we've been playing with that quite a bit, as we've been getting. This is. I know we're kind of going off a little off topic, but it's all on topic because it's all about digitization. This is around how do you, because everybody still has to eat, you still have to run your businesses, right? For all of us that were doing things physically, how do you start to manage the shift of what your compensation is for doing these things? what I'm finding is there's more inbound for us to speak at more things. And I've realized that my level of contribution in terms of doing things for free or doing things for a lot less than getting on an aeroplane and flying to a hotel and doing like a big thing in person, which is, you have your speaker agent and you got your speakers bureau, all this kind of stuff. And that's an industry too that's trying to figure this out, because there's so much free content, there's free resource, there's access, there's slightly different experience. Although it doesn't mean that the knowledge is different. It doesn't mean the person sharing the knowledge is different. It doesn't make them any less more valuable than what you would have paid if it was physical. But what I think what we're dealing with, going back to the last point here, is that your ability to access more people, if the distribution of information is correct, like if you can reach a broader audience for ticket sales, if you can reach a broader audience to spark their interest and awareness to come to you, it's quite interesting is that you could actually access more people. And for anybody producing or creating or speaking, never compromise on your value ever, but you may want to think about how do you make yourself even more accessible? Because when you do, you start to get out to a broader audience, which is super fascinating, which allows you to come back. So Ken, I absolutely agree. Let's do that. Let's declare it right here publicly that we will figure out how to create an event and put it up here and talk about and advertise it, where we go through, we go through some stuff, and maybe it's a workshop that you and I do. Maybe it's just, something that we test out small, and we give a couple tools and techniques. We take people through an actual canvas or a workshop or something along those lines, which empower people a little more. And if people want to go deeper after that, great. But one of the things here is that I think what's interesting for us is that, like with the show, we can record it here. There's a few people watching on these different streams, but because it's recorded, if we choose to put it up so you can relive it over and over and over and over, this video right now could live on for the next 10 or 15, 20 years and gain more and more and more impact based on whatever is happening. And so there's an interesting thing where physical events and these live experiences was only for the privileged who could be there in the moment, in that time. Now what is interesting is we have the opportunity to have content and your legacy and your message and your stuff live on a lot longer, whether you're there or not. And you never know, like you said, you just never know how many people you could end up impacting. Maybe today it's 2 viewers or 5 viewers. But if we've done this, Kent, I mean, you know, some of the stats, we've gone back and looked, and we've had thousands of hours of our content watched.
Yeah, after we made it.
After we've made it, which is fascinating for us. So it's getting us thinking so differently about the topics and the messages. So highly recommend. And in the chat box in the YouTube stream, I hope this stays up when it goes to when it goes to our YouTube channel. You'll see all the tips and points there. But any other last thoughts on that one? I know we're coming close to time here, Kent, as well, and I would love to ask you one closing question. But any thoughts about really just absorbing what the opportunity is and the potential is right now for anybody in moving to a digital realm?
Only one, in that it's a matter of leverage, a matter of scale. You have to think about the whole arc of how what you create unfolds. It's not just, I mean, the moment is now. That's something I've been fond of saying lately. It's always now, but you create ripples, like when you throw a rock in a pond. And in this way, when you digitize something, the ripples are effectively permanent. They don't go away. Now, content ages and fades away, but this live video, because we're broadcasting on Periscope, for example, as far as I know, that's effectively permanent, unless Twitter closes. Same thing with YouTube, same thing with Facebook. Now Twitch, for example, they delete your content after 60 days by default, so it's a little different. I think it's 60 days. Might be less, actually. Anyway, that's my one thought, is that, it's about leverage. You cannot get this kind of leverage any other way. Yeah.
So what we do every time is we coming to the end of yet another awesome show and just deep philosophical things. I hope you stuck with us. If not, come back and watch the recording. There's always gems and nuggets of wisdom as we get better each show, and we're getting those things. What we've learned is one of the things to do at the end of the show is kind of recap big points. I'm going to put Kent back on the spot again, because this was all around sort of digitizing these experiences, and we've just run a few really good ones this week. And we're learning every single day. Just this morning, we learned again as we're helping another client get their breakthrough and realize their digital potential and get empowered through technology. Ken, your 3 takeaways from today. If we're going to leave the audience with 3 things to go in action on today, what would we tell them to do?
Okay. Number 1, if you haven't done this for some strange reason, go out and sign up for an event, attend it, and participate. That might be 2, but that's really the first one. Attend and participate. Don't just attend and voyeur, right? Attend and participate. That's number 1. Number 2, I think, let's see, big takeaways. Pensive is fine. Just give me a second.
Sure.
I would say, okay, these are all going to be thematic. When you do that participation, try to use that moment to book something and follow on, right? Because you're also trying to make connections, and it is those connections that will dictate the entire rest of your life. I know that sounds a little dramatic, but I can tell you from personal experience, it was a physical event, but I went to an event in March of 2013, and Kyle, that's why we're sitting here right now, because I went to that event, and it led me to be on faculty, and being on faculty led me to meet you in Mazatlan, Mexico, and that led us to have a mastermind, and that led us to this show, and that led us so much more. So that's sort of the ripples in time, right? So don't take that lightly. It's pretty important, that you be there. And then the third thing, and I sort of hinted at this earlier, I'll put a finer point on it. This is an interesting one. Be present. It's so hard. Let's say you've signed up for 4 digital events today. You're not going to be giving your best, right, to all 4 of them. So, the cool thing is, if you signed up for 4, there's probably replays. There's probably ways to see it again. But you've got to be present wherever you are when you're there for that moment. And this is hard, right? I think there are certain religious cultures that have been trying to master this for thousands and thousands of years. But be present, apply that mindfulness to the moment in whatever you're doing, whether it's digitized or not. It can just be playing with your kids. The distractions are many, but be present.
Amazing. I've put it all into the chat box over here. Once again, Kent, this is a really deep and thorough show. There are a lot of good questions that have been answered here. So there are, some good nuggets, good sound bites for you to get activated and started. If you're just beginning, take action. If you're a pro and you've been doing this a lot, just remember, common sense is not always common practice, and you can always take yourself to the next level. So what is that next level for you if you're a super pro at this and watching this? And we appreciate your attendance and your audience. Please give us a subscribe. Please give us a like. Please share this around. It's on our mission. You would be doing us a huge service. It's on our purpose, on our mission to unlock digital potential in others, to empower people through technology, to spread the word, to give out content, to help all ships rise together. So thank you once again for joining a great show of Digitized Live, Season 2, Episode 2, Unlocking Your Digital Potential. Go out there, take action, and have fun. Thank you so much, Kent.
Awesome. Kyle, thank you. That was awesome. I'm really grateful. Take care.